Um, so today we're going to talk a bit about leads, listings, and leverage, which is also known as the 3 Ls. Those are basically what the 20% of the things that you should be focusing on a daily basis would consist of. Those are like your big rocks in your business. So we're going to go over 4 different things. We're going to go over these 3 things as well as the 80-20 rule and just kind of what that means in terms of your business. So leads, listings, and leverage, we're going to go a little bit more in depth in each of those 2 in terms of like different ways that you can lead generate and trying to figure out what works best for you. Listings, just why focusing on listings in your business is a really great way to leverage your business in general. And then once you get your business to a point where you feel like you don't have enough time and you need to leverage other people, hiring and how that looks in a business as well. So in terms of the 80-20, the goal is to focus on like the main money making activities that are going to grow your business. So the 80-20 rule is basically stating that 20% of what you do turns into 80% of your results. And so throughout our day, there's a lot of things that end up popping up that can distract us or take us away from what our intended schedule is for the day. But just kind of keeping in mind that those things, even if you have to end up shifting like where you're putting those action items within your schedule for the day, making sure that they actually stay, that they're continuously being done and not put on the back burner because other things came up throughout the day. So the 20% first. So in terms of figuring out what that looks like, hi, how are you? Good. In terms of figuring out what that looks like, you'd want to do like a goal to action 20% worksheet. So the first thing that you would want to do is write down your key goals and action steps to achieve those. So I would come up with what your main goals are within your business. And I would probably create like 1 to 3 of them. Maybe focus them around if you've done a GPS already, what your 3 priorities are based off of your 1 big goal for the year. And then in terms of those key goals, action steps to achieve those goals. So like tangible and measurable action steps to be able to reach the goals that are within the 20% of things that you should be doing on a daily basis. The second thing would be to create a due date. So when you have action items, you need to have a specified time frame for when you want to get those done by, because otherwise it's really easy to make a continuous like to-do list or goal sheet and keep adding to it. And without direction in terms of time frame, there's many times it's not going to actually get done. So you're definitely going to want to put a due date on there and then implement those action steps into your calendar, which brings us to the second part of this, would be creating a time blocking schedule to actually incorporate those items into your daily schedule. I know we talked about this a bit yesterday during the goal setting and time blocking class. So allocating your time on your personal calendar initially before you incorporate any kind of business activities is crucial, because obviously those things should be non-negotiables in your schedule. So those would be things like sleeping, getting ready, spending time with your family, if you have any vacations on the calendar, accounting for all of the things that you're not necessarily willing to forego in your daily schedule. And then beyond that, once you have those items situated on your daily or weekly calendar, adding in the action items for your goals based around that. So in relating that to your GPS, that would basically be implementing your strategies into your calendar under each priority. And then beyond that, the rest of the 80% would be pretty much what is on your, what would be like the rest of your to-do list. And those are things that might still be important to your business, but not necessities that need to happen every single day. So prioritizing when you make a list, and they encourage you to do it every day. Make a list of the things that are like your big rocks and the things that you absolutely need to get done that day. And then everything else, would fall within the 80% of things that are ideally going to get done, but if they don't, aren't going to make or break your business. In terms of leads, generally our number one job as independent contractors and real estate agents is lead generation. Without leads, we don't have a database, and without a database, we don't have a business. So generally, if there is one thing that you should be focusing on within your business to grow it, it would be to find leads and generate leads. Creating enough leads is paramount to making sure that you have and are able to run and grow a lucrative business. And that's why initially onboarding, especially with new agents, the first thing that we tell you to do is to go into Command and add 100 people into your database, or as many as you possibly can. Some people might not have 100 people in their sphere of influence to be able to put into that initially. So if you need to grow it over the course of a month or two when you're first starting out, that's totally fine and normal. But put as many people as you possibly can on there, and then go through and create your smart plans and put each person on a specified smart plan so that you're actively reaching out to them. In terms of lead generation and conversion, you should be able to run a business based off of having those 100 people within your database, because generally speaking, for every 6 people you have in your database, one person will end up being a client or referral over time. Your database generally is your business, and you have to make sure that that's your lifeline. So whether you decide that you prefer building your database by marketing or teaching classes to first-time home buyers, or hosting socials, or getting leads from a paid lead generation site, it's really important to make sure that you have a few different avenues of leads, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of your business too, make sure that you really, really are digging into your sphere of influence. And I know sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating, especially starting off having those conversations with people that you know, especially if you haven't talked to them in a while. But utilizing like the scripts that we have provided through Keller Williams is really important to be able to talk to those people and reach out. Even if you reach out to them by like sending them something, I would maybe send them something and then call and say, hey, I was thinking about you. Send them a direct message on social media if like something really great happens to them, or just say, hey, just wanted to say hi, looks like you're doing really great. Just making sure that you're touching base with those people, and those people essentially in most cases are going to make up about 80% of your database. In most cases, some people have a little bit smaller sphere of influence, and that's okay. You just might have to work a little bit harder to build it up to 100. And obviously the goal initially is 100, but that's not like the end goal. So just because you reach 100 people in your database doesn't mean that you should just stop lead generating and focus only on those people. The goal is to be continuously growing your database so that you have more people to reach out to, given the 6-1 rule. Lead generating despite your current business, that is a huge one. What ends up happening in many cases is that once you start getting busy with your current business, you start doing buyer showings, you're doing listing consultations regularly, you're having, you're kind of just all over the place in terms of, especially in this market with working with buyers, you could very quite possibly be in the car for like a full day. And then in addition to that, unless you have like a transaction coordinator, end up having to do like your paperwork when you get back and responding to emails and all of the administrative side of the job. And agents have a tendency to get so caught up in doing those items that they completely neglect lead generating during that time. And so generally speaking, when you're lead generating, what you're doing right now for your lead gen is going to be what your business looks like within the next 30, 60, and 90 days. So if you're focusing solely on the business that you have going on right now for an entire month until you get those closed, it's very likely that by the time you get those closed, you're not going to have any business going after that. So it's really important to make sure that you're still lead generating, even if you feel like you're being pulled in like 1,000 different directions. You have to be able, making 10 calls a week, call 2 a day is better than calling nothing. And that's also, might I add, the importance of using smart plans. because that takes the guesswork and the actual work out of you having to do it all yourself. So you're still staying in front of those people without actually actively having to reach out to them. Smart plans are really nice because they're automated, and it's a great way to stay in front of people without actually spending like an exuberant amount of time having to do that. Obviously, you should still be making calls on a regular basis, but utilizing that really, really helps leverage your business and your time. I do want to note the difference between lead receiving and lead generating. Lead receiving generally is like leads that are coming into you, whether that be sphere of influence, people you know. Lead generating is you actively going out and trying to get more leads. So acknowledging the fact that sometimes when you first start your business, a lot of people might say like, oh, so-and-so has been waiting for me to get my license. So I have 1 or 2 or 3 clients right off the bat. If you're not lead generating and trying to find new business, that is probably going to stop at some point. Nobody's business, most people, I'd say 98% of agents don't have a sphere large enough to where you know enough people that you're just going to be busy only with your sphere until you get to the point where your business is large enough that you're working primarily on a referral basis and have an established business and reputation and systems. So just acknowledging the fact that those are 2 completely different things, and just because people are coming in doesn't mean that that's actively generating. And then prospecting versus marketing, we talked about this the other day too. Those are 2 different things. Prospecting is basically you going out. It's very similar to like lead receiving and lead generating, but just more in terms of marketing. Prospecting is you going out and trying to find people that are potentially going to be clients or referrals for you. Marketing is putting something out there to try to bring people into you. So those are 2 different ways that you can focus on lead generation, but acknowledging the fact that those are 2 completely different things. Does anyone have any question on leads so far? No? Okay. I actually really love this little diagram or list. I feel like I put this in every single one of my PowerPoints now, just because one of the biggest questions is like, where do I get new leads from? How am I supposed to get my own leads? Without having to spend either a ton of money doing it or a ton of time doing it. A lot of agents think that the main way to lead generate is cold calling, and that's not necessarily the case. Clearly, looking at this list of lead generation sources. And so this touches base on the left-hand side is prospecting, right-hand side is marketing. And so let me move this thing. You can see that too. Telemarketing, obviously that's calling. That's one of the biggest ways to get leads. People like talking to people. I mean, people like meeting people. I think that that's an even better one. But if you're going to start with anything, calling different people, this is a huge list of people that you can call to try to build relationships and see if anybody needs help with real estate. For sale by owners, expireds, just solds, just listeds, past clients, allied resources, so affiliates and people that you know, geographical farm area, apartments, people, so people that are currently renting that might potentially be first-time home buyers, marketing to them. Corporations, builders, banks, and third-party companies. I mean, what's stopping you from putting together a packet on home buying and going to a dentist's office and dropping 10 of them off and leaving it in their waiting room, or giving it to their staff, or going to your doctor's office and leaving it with where the magazines are? Maybe have like 100 of, like bind 100 of them, not in like a super expensive way, but just get like, you know, the little clear things and put your packet together and then just put the thing on the end. Go leave them out. What's the worst thing that happens? Someone throws them away? Who cares? But at least it's an opportunity by that time, at least like maybe a handful of people saw them and or took them home. You could even put on it, feel free to take me home with you. Face to face, I think that's the biggest thing. People really like to see other people's body language and facial expressions and actually like talk to you and get to know you a little bit. People work with people that they feel comfortable with and people that they trust. And so being able to have those face-to-face conversations is really important. Obviously, allied resources, door-to-door canvassing, so door knocking, open houses. is great opportunity because it's essentially free, minus maybe a small cost for like marketing materials, flyers, things like that. The nice thing about open houses is you can attract buyers and sellers. So you don't necessarily have to focus on one. Buyers are inherently going to come to your open house because they're actively looking to buy. And then you can actually invite all of the neighbors by either dropping something off or door knocking prior to holding an open house to try to get seller leads from that neighborhood as well. Client parties, networking events, social functions and community events, seminars, like Janice does her first time home buyer seminar every month. Great way to get people engaged. Booths at events. I mean, what's stopping you from paying $50 to get a booth at a farmer's market and just bring some information and marketing materials and talk to people about buying a home? Super easy. Hang out for a day and talk to people. Maybe do a raffle or a giveaway to get people's information. Teaching and speaking opportunities, things like BNI are great. I know that costs, I think it's like $500 a year, something like that, but there's definitely free things like that. And you can do things like your own seminars. You can organize it and set it up, partner with your affiliates and do it on your own. You don't have to do it through a different organization. In terms of marketing, advertising is an indirect way of bringing people to you so they see your marketing and then they potentially call you for your services if they need it. But those avenues would be newspapers, vehicles. You can always get just like a car magnet. I think they're like $30 on Vistaprint that has like, you can put your logo, your name, your phone number, and call me today, or like free home valuation. Easy. And then you can also then write off your vehicle as a marketing expense because it's advertising. Radio stations, magazines, bus stop benches, billboards, grocery carts, yellow pages, TV, moving vans. Easy way to get into all of those things. And literally, if there's something that you're like super interested in doing over something else, Google it. I guarantee Google has an answer for probably any question you have in terms of how to get into these companies. Or call companies directly. Call their management. See who they partner with to get names on their benches in their stores. I can guarantee they know who is providing the benches in the stores and who they're partnered with. Even like golf courses, they do a ton too. You can have your information put on the bottom or like a referral sheet of the scorecards that they use. There's a ton of different ways that you can advertise. Promotional items such as magnets and calendars. Vistaprint is good for that. Magnets USA. What I used to do was order just like 200 magnets at the beginning of the year, and they were little notepads. And then at the top, it had like a sticky part, and you could put your business card up there. So you could order business cards specifically for that are a little bit different than your normal business cards if you wanted it to look a certain way. Obviously, keeping in mind compliance in terms of like advertising and for housing and everything like that. But calendars, you can have calendars printed. Sports calendars is a big one right before a new sports season. What a better way for someone to see you on a daily basis than for your information to be on their fridge every single day, especially for months, if not years. Like the notepad calendars that I had previously ordered, it was a notepad, but then once those ran out, it was like a conversion table for like tablespoons to whatever. And then on the back, it was a household passwords cheat sheet. There's no reason for someone to throw that away. People always want to know that stuff. Internet websites, obviously you have your own website, but then creating landing pages as well is a really great way. You can create like QR codes to be able to go to your website, to be able to contact people and set them up on a home search portal. You can just create a completely separate website if you want to, for whatever purpose you want it to have. Direct mail, postcard campaigns, newsletter campaigns, just sold, just listing cards, special event cards, inviting people to open houses, quarterly market updates. You can send out things to each neighborhood at the beginning of the summer with all of the festivities that go on within their city, all the farmers markets, if they have like a home days or a fun days. If there's different, sports camps or something going on, family activities, send it out. Just create like a cute little calendar and put it in a clear plastic bag and go drop it or mail it. Computer retrieval programs. So like lead generation sources, like third-party companies, broadcasting, voice email, signs and directional signs and brochure boxes. So that would be if you have a listing. Obviously having your sign outside, a brochure box with information on that listing and information on that property that people can actively take with them. Name badges, logo shirts, car signs. You can have clothing and accessories created for your branding. Again, all of these things are write-offs. News releases and advice columns, farming geographical or demographic areas, and then sponsorship. So you can sponsor like Little League, charities, community events, church events, whatever you want. And those are typically pretty affordable too. So the idea behind this is obviously making sure you should ideally have between 2 and 4 lead generation methods at the minimum. But the thing is, the important thing to remember is that you don't want to pick too many of these to focus on at one time, because then you're going to get analysis paralysis and you're probably not going to do any of it. Pick one thing initially to start with, get a system around it, and then move on to the second thing. But I think it would be a really good idea to start with picking 4 things that you're comfortable with doing and then tackling one at a time so you have systems around it. The MREA talks a bit about becoming creative within your business. And a common mistake that a lot of agents make right off the bat is going in and just being super creative initially rather than implementing systems first. And the problem with that is that when there's no structure within your business at the point where you feel like you have to leverage, it's going to be pretty confusing to figure out how to like revamp the systems that you've not implemented and kind of taking a step back to incorporate those. So ideally, what you should do, especially in a new business, is create the systems, especially around like marketing, budgeting, making sure that what you're spending is not exceeding what you're making. And of course, sometimes there's the cost of business, of getting into business when you're first getting into business. You have to be able to get leads in business somehow. Eventually, over the course of time, it's important for you to track all of those things, because you have to make sure that what you're spending your money on in the long run is giving you at least a 3-time return on investment. If it's not, then it's not a good investment, because what's the point of doing it if it's just paying for itself, other than growing your business, your referral business? If you're getting a pretty decent amount of leads and business from it, maybe do it for like 6 to 12 months, just so you have those clients to go back to and can potentially get referrals from those relationships. Beyond that, I would probably not encourage you to invest in that avenue anymore. And then we did also talk about this a little bit yesterday too. What would be the benefit of having more than one lead generation method? And the answer generally was that sometimes the market shifts. And of course, with that, sometimes the way that our leads come into us also shift. So if you're focusing all of your time on one lead generation source and something happens and that gets taken away from you, you're going to find yourself in a position of having to revamp your entire business, which is going to take time. So like I said before, what you're doing right now in your business is what your business is going to look like in the next 30, 60, 90 days. So if your lead generation avenue that you have been using for 2 years, for whatever reason, is not an option anymore, at that point, ideally, you'd have your referral business. So that would be a lead generation source. But beyond that, you'd have to figure out another resource for leads and kind of start over a little bit. So making sure that you have 2 to 4 lead generation avenues simultaneously is really important, just in case there's a shift somewhere. So what I would like for you to do right now is just to make a list of the methods that you're using for lead generation currently, what the associated costs with those are, and then if you find yourself not having 2 to 4 avenues, picking a couple more of these items to commit to incorporate into your business. And so I'll give you a minute or 2 to do that. anyone have any questions about anything while we're doing that? Hi, Andrea.
Hello.
Hey. I do think it would be a good idea too, if you have the desire to maybe with the prospecting or marketing routes that you're adding, maybe creating some kind of like budget or associated costs that you're comfortable paying for that too, so that you can break it down once you know what the cost like per item would be. And then that way it's a little bit more trackable in terms of how you can utilize that. All right, so we will move on to listings then. I think it goes without saying that listings in themselves are a way to leverage your time in your business. I was having a conversation with an agent this morning about the fact that they have X amount of listings coming up in August. I think she said like 6. But the thing is, she also has like a few buyers that she's working with. And so the struggle there is that a lot of the time that ideally you want to dedicate to listings is inherently being dedicated to buyers in a market where you kind of have to accommodate showings at inopportune times in efforts to not miss out on a house. So focusing on listings is really important in your business because generally you can have essentially double the amount of listings that you're working with than you can buyers at one time. So if your like max out is being able to accommodate and work well with 5 buyers at one time, realistically, that would equate to being able to work with 10 sellers at the same time. And so imagining rather than having 5 buyers, having 10 listings where you're doing less work overall because you're spending less time and less resources on driving all over the place, really. And you can control your schedule a little bit better because you're not having to do showings on other people's schedules. You can plan your schedule out and actually be able to stick to it. But also, you make more money. This is a huge, huge area to be able to double your income. And generally speaking, say you charge 6% on a listing and you're offering 3.2, that means that you're making 3.4. So with all of those buyers those 5 buyers that you were potentially working with, let's say you're generally making 3% on the first 100,000 and 2% on the remainder. Imagine working with 10 sellers at the same time, making 3% on the first 100,000 and 4% on the remainder. The difference in income on that is crazy. And you also get your sanity. So it's critical to build your business to the highest level with the lowest cost and the highest net. Obviously, I think that that's just generally a good business mindset to have in general. You have more control over your time and also of your money. And then what would you guys say are a couple other benefits of working with sellers over buyers? Yeah, less work. It is. Mm-hmm. The nice thing too about working with sellers is that generally for every listing you have, you should average at least 1 buyer client from it. So imagine if you focused on listings and you had someone that you work with that focused on your buyers, you still made a percentage off of a referral from that. And you can grow your referral base that way, but still leverage your time and not have to focus on that business. How nice would that be?
I have people that they're considering selling but they don't want to because then they have to, they're gonna sell high, they're gonna have to buy high,
Mhm.
they don't want to,
Yeah.
so.
So the question is that she has a seller that wants to sell, but obviously in selling at a higher cost currently or value, um, they would have to buy and pay more for a house right now also. Um, honestly, over time, in terms of like a mortgage, the way that I would handle that is that interest rates right now are still very, very low. And so because of that, it somewhat balances out a little bit because with having an interest rate and a lower purchase price, they're still going to end up paying more money over time towards interest than they are the purchase price. So they're actually, even though they're paying a little bit more for a house right now with such low interest rates, they're actually overall in their monthly payment paying less than they would pay for a lower priced home with a higher interest rate.
And then why don't they just refinance the home then?
They could if they want to do that option.
I don't know, so it seems like people are just being greedy and they want to take advantage of the market. They don't, and just they don't need a bigger house, they don't need a smaller house, but they just want to sell and make a profit.
Yeah.
And it just kind of irritates me and I don't want to.
Yeah. It's tough. A lot of people really do want to sell over. Yeah, I mean, taking advantage of it. The problem then is that they want to make that money, but then they don't want to put it towards investing in another home because they're worried that they're going to lose that money over time. It does all, I think, in my opinion, end up balancing out in the end at some point. But yeah, that is definitely a lot of the reason why people don't want to do that. In terms of refinancing, I don't know, maybe they just want like a change of scenery, excuse me, like whatever, I guess, reason they want. Fine. I had a experience recently where I had a client wanting to see a house that had gone back on the market after 3 weeks. And it was because it didn't appraise. And so I called the listing agent and I asked her, why did this go back on market? And she told me. And then I told her I was potentially scheduling a showing, and she told me, well, with it not appraising, my sellers were not willing to lower the price to the appraised value. And I said, okay. So you're saying that it appraised under what it's listed for currently? And she said, well, no, somebody offered over and they weren't willing to pay more. So we put it back on the market at the same price. But my sellers wanted me to let everybody know that they're not willing to accept an offer that doesn't have a specified appraisal gap covering the difference if it doesn't appraise. So basically, these sellers were not willing to entertain any offers that weren't over list price covering the appraisal gap. And so I told my client, and he was like, I don't even want to waste anybody's time going to see that because I'm not going to pay that much over and pay the difference. So it's like, what the appraisal value is, what you want for the house, and it's $10,000, $20,000 more than list price, and you're not willing to lower it to the appraisal value, and you're not going to sell it otherwise. So I get it. It's tough sometimes working with sellers in this market because everybody hears all the stories of what that looks like in terms of going into multiples and making X amount over. But what a lot of sellers don't think about is the appraisal, and what some agents don't have the initial conversation about is the appraisal. So even if you end up getting 10 offers over list price, if none of them are able to cover that appraisal gap, that's something you're going to end up negotiating when that time comes and it doesn't appraise. So it's a really good thing to get into the habit in this market of having a conversation up front about and just setting that expectation of, if that's not something that's in the contract initially, there's a very good chance that the buyer's not willing to pay over what it's worth. All right. So generally, these are just a few other reasons why listings are golden in your business and obviously in this market, but it's more marketing opportunities. You can market your new listing on social media, different platforms. Obviously, your for sale sign. You can send out just listed postcards to the neighborhood and see if anyone else is interested in putting their house on the market or getting a home valuation. You have more control over your time and schedule because you're not having to schedule showings based on when there's a highest and best due in 3 hours. You can maximize your compensation per hour. As we talked about, you make more money per hour because overall your commission is going to be higher. And in spending less time with travel and showings, you're going to be making more per hour overall. Increased volume with more time because you're going to be able to basically double your sales volume in terms of how many clients you can take on and actively work with at one time. Better market knowledge. So being able to price properties gives you the upper hand in understanding how they're priced in that specific market and what is for sale around that property, since obviously you used comparable sales to price it in the first place. And then it brings you more business. All of these things combined, there's no way that that's not going to bring you more business. All of those different marketing avenues and ways to market yourself and giving you more time to lead generate otherwise, inherently that's going to increase your business overall. Leverage. So like I mentioned, listings in themselves are a form of leverage within your business because you're leveraging your time. However, in this capacity, it's talking more so about hiring people to be able to help bring your business to the next level when you feel like you're just completely maxed out and you can't do any more to grow your business. So it's basically the who, how, and what of real estate. And a quote from the MREA from Ronnie and Kathy Matthews, our staff is the key to our freedom. The people that are willing to work with us and help us in terms of leveraging our business are the people that give us more time, which then gives you more freedom to handle your business how you'd like to. Doing the first two L's, so leads and listings, effectively gives you no choice but to incorporate leveraging people into your business. That inherently is just the next step. In terms of red light, green light, the way that works is obviously when you're creating your business plan, you want to start with big goals because creating larger goals allows you to create systems and models for those larger goals and to reach that. If you start smaller, obviously you might end up having to kind of shift as you grow and expand over time. So having that like really big model in mind initially is really important. But red light, green light is basically saying that you don't hire until you absolutely need to and until you have the resources to be able to do that. So right off the bat, when people, say I'm creating a team and the first thing that they do before this person even has any business is hire an administrator. First off, how are you paying that person? You're not making the income and the revenue to be able to pay somebody because you're not making anything currently. Second, you're not busy enough to need someone to be doing that for you. So it's pretty much just the premise of making sure that like you're doing everything you can. And when you reach your ceiling of what you can do on your own, you have to find a who to help you. In whatever capacity that looks like. Generally, the MREA model would be to hire an administrator first. I hear a lot of people talking about wanting to hire an admin, but then hiring a buyer assistant and then hiring a listing agent. And so there is a certain format in terms of leveraging that I've done in a different class. I'm not sure if it was recorded or not, but just basically the order of how hiring should go ideally in terms of how your business is growing. And then just making sure that you're adding the right people to your business is like, it's so crucial because adding the wrong person to your business could really hinder your growth. Because really the point of hiring somebody is to be able to leverage your time enough to be able to focus on growing your business. And that person should also be assisting in the growth of your business. So making sure that when you hire someone too, that you hire with intention and you know exactly what that person's being paid, what their responsibility is, and also what results you're expecting from them. Because if they're not doing the things that they need to be doing to help you leverage your business, then you maybe hired the wrong person. One thing in business I think people say commonly is hire slow and fire fast. Because the longer you keep someone that's not actively helping your business grow, the more you are sacrificing your business. So just making sure that the right people are in place in the right places. I started listening to a book that CJ had actually recommended called Who Not How. And it basically was saying that like I think we talked about this yesterday, every who needs a who. And so relationships in that capacity are symbiotic. But it's really cool because it's really just using people as resources to get to the end goal faster, and hiring and putting people in place that know how to do what you need someone to do. So in a good hire, obviously you would hire someone that already knows how to implement these systems, and like that type of personality or person is really good at doing that type of thing. Essentially, someone that is not ideal for that job would be someone that doesn't know how to implement systems and doesn't understand how to, because then you're going to end up handling it yourself anyways, most likely, and then paying someone to do nothing. Utilizing leverage. So the first thing to consider is who's going to do it. And obviously that's people. So we just have to find the right people for the job. If you are ever looking to hire someone, or if you need assistance with that, we have resources in our market center in terms of our leadership team to be able to help you figure out who you should be hiring first and what that looks like. How will they do it? Obviously systems, and as I mentioned before, implementing systems before getting creative with your business is essential. You have to make sure that you have solid systems and a solid foundation before you do anything else. It's funny, the MREA actually compares it to a house. Weird. How like people get in and can start decorating and getting super creative with what they want to do in a house, but if it doesn't have a solid foundation, really doesn't mean much. It's going to end up crumbling. So, and then what are they going to do with it? Obviously using tools within the systems to be able to make things run smoothly. So in terms of starting to hire leverage, as I mentioned, the first person would be administrative. So whether that looks like a full-time admin, someone, maybe a part-time admin, or just hiring a transaction coordinator to take those things off of your plate, it's really helpful. And realistically, like if you don't want to hire someone full-time or part-time, transaction coordinator is like $250 a transaction. So if you're making like a $5,000 check on a $200,000 property, I think paying $250 to get at least at the minimum a few hours back to put back into lead generation, it's worth it, especially if you plan on growing your business. Second would be buyer specialists, a lead specialist, and showing assistants. And then the third would be lead listing specialists and listing specialists. So essentially, at a certain point in terms of leverage, you hire enough people that you're basically just maintaining and managing a team that is handling all of the clients, and that opens up a lot of time for you to then bring more leads in for them to work. You're probably making a referral on most of these things, most of these transactions, and then you can continuously grow your team that way as well and leverage it in that capacity. And obviously keeping in mind, the more buyer and listing specialists you hire, the more administrators you're going to need to be able to support those people too. All right. What questions do you guys have? I know we're a little early. Any ahas? Anything you feel like you are going to take away and implement into your business today? Get on lead gen. What's the one thing you're going to do to lead gen?
I think I'm just getting more consistent with mailing things to my sphere.
Awesome. What's one thing you can do to do that?
Make a calendar and the deadlines of when those things have to go out.
Perfect. Love it. What about you, Janice? I love that you just laughed.
I know, because I feel like I know my two are gonna do are working for me, but I know I need to incorporate another one. So I do like the idea of taking packets and leaving them at doctor's office and stuff like that. I think about that, but then well, you already know, because we're the same people. So I think about it. And then
You know what would be a good way to do that without having to spend time doing it? There's a magazine called Lifestyle Magazine, and they brand it to you, and you get like 25 a month, and then you can have you. How did that work out for you? Not so great.
No, but I didn't, I mean, you have to.
Keep doing it.
consistently doing it.
Yeah,
It was more costly than what I wanted to spend.
fair.
Maybe it wasn't lifestyle. I think I did. I don't know which one I did. I did Reminder.
Yeah, Reminder Media.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same one?
I think it is. I think the magazine is through Reminder Media, I believe.
So that's an idea, but I really need to be more consistent in farming, and I need to, I have areas in mind, but I need to just stop thinking about it and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one hiccup. That's the one thing that I'm not consistent in right now.
What's one thing that you can implement today to get your farming more organized?
Just actually select the area that I'm going to farm,
Mhm.
and I started like drafting my cards and stuff in Canva,
Mm-hmm.
so I have that part, and then just put it on the calendar and just doing it.
Awesome.
You know.
Cool.
I have part of it done. I have the calendar. I have the cards made up in Canva.
Yeah.
I just have to mail them out. And then I also would start that. That's the first part of the farm is just to mail them something.
Mm-hmm.
But I also need to do the same thing with the apartment complexes. So I just kind of been sitting on that one for a minute.
Yeah. Pick one,
Mm-hmm.
get through it, and then
I
do
actually
the
have
other.
the cards for that one already. I just couldn't.
Maybe do that one first.
Yeah.
Can you commit to mailing those by August 2nd? The week after next week?
I can do that.
Okay. Bethany, can
I
you
think my hard part with that one is trying to find their addresses.
pick the buildings that you want to do and email Ohio Rail and ask them for their
Oh,
addresses. Can you commit to making your next 6-month newsletter mail out calendar by the 2nd? Okay.
there's no try.
I'm gonna do a countdown on my calendar.
Do one a
Just
day,
like weekly reminder.
right? I'm gonna follow up with both of you guys on the 2nd and see how you're doing with it. Andrea, do you want to share one thing that you'd like to implement into your business?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah.
Well, so I actually purchased door hangers and just haven't gone out to hang them. So
Awesome.
I'm sitting and I'm thinking, I'm like, just get out and go put it in the area that you have determined you wanted to farm.
Mm-hmm.
So I put them in the car.
Awesome.
We're on this meeting, so I'm going to implement that. I'm just going to go do it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Love that. That's a great idea. I'm glad you already have that situated. It's just follow through.
Yeah, I have them in my possession, and then I'm just going to follow up, I guess, after
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks, week or two after I get these hung.
Perfect. Love that. Awesome. Does anyone have any other ahas, feedback, input, anything you'd like to share generally? Was this helpful? Good. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll end a few minutes early. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thanks.